Hi, hello, ladies on the internet. My name is James Murua, and welcome to the James Murua Literary Livestream. I'm not very imaginative. I should have given it a cooler name, but that's what we have. We're going with. Welcome to the live stream today. Our guests are Jama Musse Jama and Stephanie Hirsbrunner. This live stream is done in cooperation with the Frankfurter Buchmesse, which in English is a Frankfurt Book Fair, with financial support from the German Federal Foreign Office. Karibu, welcome. We have Stefanie in the house. She's live, and Dr. Jama, can you hear us? Are you able to hear us? Hello, Dr. Jama, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you well. I hope you are hearing me well.
Yes, perfect. I'm very happy to have you here. And also, Stephanie, let's hear your voice so we know that we can hear your voice properly.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Hello, James. Hello, Jama. It's nice to see you.
Excellent.
To see you.
So what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about literary festivals and why they're important in an ecosystem. And let me just introduce these people here that you're seeing, those of us who are on the internet, the 8 of you who are there live. Dr. Jama Musse Jama is an ethnomathematician with a PhD in African Studies, specializing in computational linguistics of African languages. He has extensive research publications in mathematics, ICT, and the role of art and culture in development. Founder and yearly organizer of the influential Hargeysa International Book Fair, which is currently running right now. He's also the director of the Hargeysa Cultural Center in Somaliland. He's also a senior research associate at DPU, University College London, UK. You're welcome, Dr. Jama.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you. Thank you. And hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Stephanie Hirsbrunner is a political scientist. She's a scientist. She's the author of several non-fiction books, including Sorry About Colonialism and Hotel 5 Sterne, which in English is Hotel 5 Stars. Her most recent publication, the anthology Africa, Radical New Duncan, which in English is Africa Rethinking Radically, which she co-edited, was published in 2016. She moderates and teaches. Since 2018, she has run the bookstore Intercontinental in Berlin, which was honored with the German Award for Bookstores in 2021. Furthermore, she's a board member of the Intercontinental Association, which seeks to promote African literature in Germany, and functions as the director of the African Book Festival in Berlin. That is Stephanie. You're very welcome, Stephanie.
Hello, thank you so much.
Thank you to both of you. We'll start with Dr. Jama. How is the Hargeysa Festival doing? I mean, I know it's currently going on. How has the response been so far since the 24th?
Thank you, James, for having us, and it's a really pleasure to meet you virtually again, and all our audience. Yes, it's going on. If you probably heard in background outside of my room, there is a wonderful film presentation where we had a screening of a young filmmaker who just finished a cartoon film for children, which is really fantastic work that he has done. So the book fair is well. And as you know, the Hargeysa International Book Fair, you visited, so you know well. It's more than just a book. The book is in the middle of our work, but we celebrate many different forms of art, mainly for the young people. So today it was the film day, where we had, actually this year we had also film making training. So it was a celebration of the young artists who developed and produced films for the last year that they were working. And because of the COVID-19, actually affected the festival. Strangely enough, it worked in the opposite here, because of we skip it. We became virtual book fair last year, and this year was as we were doing 2 book fairs together. So overcrowded, young and not anymore young people who are enjoying and reading, and yes, it's going well.
So the question I want to ask you as a follow-up to that is, you're the founder of the festival. Why did you start the festival? What do you need a festival for, like that in Hargeysa?
Well, it was back 15 years ago, actually, and the story, to make short, I wrote a book in 7. Actually, no. Before that, I was the chair of the Somaliland Forum, which was a diaspora pressure group to promote the Somaliland independence and so on, stuff like that. And for the first time, the Somaliland government jailed a journalist for the first time. So we did sort of a campaign for Article 32, which is Somaliland constitutional article for freedom of expression. And from that work, I wrote a book called Gobernima Bilash Maha in Somali, which means freedom is not free. The whole idea in 2007 for me coming back from Italy and the UK to Somaliland was to present that book in Somaliland. That book that went in Europe, I wrote the book in and presenting the own book fair, your book, why not to expand and go beyond? And the reason was coming the fact that Somali people are always labeled as a oral society where the reading and writing culture is quite absent. And I was thinking, yes, that may be true, but there were no books circulating. There was lack of the raw material for the young people. There was no books written in Somali to read, available in Somaliland. So the original idea of the book fair, it was just present your book or collect the books together and talk about a book fair, was that was the initial quite accidental reason. But immediately, what we have done is that the place where we use it to present the book is we built a Somali hut, which means talking about Somali culture, Somali art, Somali tradition, Somali and stuff like that. And it was immediately sort of quite attraction to the people, not only young people, where the book is in the middle of the heart of what we are doing. But let us go beyond the book and talk about the traditional dance, talk about traditional songs for making Somali. So,
Okay. Hello.
Idea, yes, it's the book, but it showed the need. It all immediately showed the need to have a platform where the artist, whether it's a writer, poet, Somali people are really deeply inherited with the Somali poetry, oral poetry. So whether painter, whether poet, whether any form of art, a platform to meet with the audience, and in this case, students. So that was the need that we felt. The only way to do that was to create such a platform. Just to conclude, we took this kind of a title, Hargeysa International Book Fair, but it has nothing to be international because we were two people coming from the diaspora, coming back, met the airport. Just we were the internationalists who were coming to the book fair. That title, that really paid off because of if in an extended weekend, 3 days, actually 2.5 days, we collected a couple of hundred of people who visited the hotel that we used at that time. And that was the initial. In 2017, when we were doing the 10th anniversary, over 11,000 people attended the book fair. So from that day where we were two people coming as a diaspora, but calling themselves internationalists, who were coming back to do the book fair, national gatherings. So the last time that we did before the COVID, we reached our our score of almost 11,500 people who in 6 full days subscribed it, and with over 52 people coming from outside, between publishers, writers, politicians, and it became a place to debate, really beyond the book, where the discussion about the horn takes place. And to conclude, Somaliland is not a recognized country, so it became also kind of a flagship for Somaliland to say, okay, I'm going to the book fair. You know, ambassadors came to the book fair just to come to Somaliland and avoid we are going to Somaliland, a non-recognized country, and they say we are going to the book fair.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. I love it because I've been to the fair, but I want to bring in Stefanie right now. Stefanie, you're doing the African Book Fair in Berlin. What was the idea? What was the idea of forming this festival and starting?
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me, James. And Jama, it's so inspiring to hear your story. It's so impressive what you're doing there. And little festivals and newcomers like us in Berlin, we're really looking up to what you have achieved in the last 15 years. It's impressive. It is many things that you have just said I can relate to, but in a very different context maybe. When you're asking me, James, why we started our festival, we started it in 2018, but of course the story goes a little bit further beyond that, and it also is a personal story, I think, just like Jama also explained. So my partner and I, we run the bookstore together, and we also founded the festival together as a platform for African literature and also African perspectives. Because when Jama said the African continent is a bit related, for example, to the idea of oral tradition, that also reflects a lot, I think, in what German readers think still about the continent. It has to do a lot with a lack of translation. So let me just give you a figure. In 2018, we presented more than 100 books from the continent. So the authors that we had as guests brought in their suitcases all the books that they have published. These books are awarded the highest literature awards around the world, and still 8 books were translated into German. So you can see the huge gap that is still there. And I do not blame German readers per se when they say, I am not really familiar with the literature from the continent. Because, you know, if you are not familiar with, say, reading in English or maybe French, or let's not even talk about, say, African languages, Hausa, Swahili, etc., then you basically have a problem accessing this literature. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, we did an event, just because it was curiosity, also because we are interested in the literature, my partner and I. We are both political scientists, as you mentioned already in your introduction. So we come from that angle. We come from politics and the European-African relations. And so we were both always interested in the literature that is produced on the continent. And then we did an event, like we always, we are event managers, so to speak, and we've done this in a long time. So, for example, we were responsible together as a team for the German Africa Award that is given out by the Foreign Ministry every year. So we've done a lot of high prestige, high class events for a long time, Carla and I. And then we did a literature event. We called it a literature congress, focused on African literature. And we brought some of the authors that we loved. And we thought, okay, let's present them to the German audience. And it had a huge effect. The hall was packed. And that was something that we both found amazing. And we thought, this is something, maybe we should do this annually, you know, and maybe we should do something like that in a bigger sense, because yes, African authors have traveled to Germany before. There's something that is quite famous in Berlin. It's called the International Literature Festival. And of course, it also has authors from Africa or from the diaspora as guests. But the way they were presented, for example, and the way they were paired on stage, I found it always a bit loveless. It wasn't quite what I personally was interested in. And I think the conversations that we put on stage are very, very different with our festival.
That is so good. I mean, I'm so happy you've done what you've done. So let's talk a bit about the literary festival and what it is. Jama, what's the difference between a book fair and a literary festival? Because sometimes they are thrown in interchangeably. I mean, I know it's the Hargeysa International Book Fair, but it has a bit of a literary fair. What's the difference?
I think, you know, what makes, I attended several book fairs in Europe, and I think, you know, what makes a success of a fair in the West, mainly the major book fairs that I attended, is the volume of the books, of the volume of license, of the volume of money exchanged in that. So in the business side of the book, that's what makes hugely the success of a book fair in the West. Then maybe. I want here a friend of us, Chuman Okolo, a poet who attended several times, always attended the Hargeysa International Book Fair. And he said, what makes difference between the Hargeysa International Book Fair and book fairs in the West that I have seen is what makes the news is, of course, the volume of the, you know, of the business exchange or license. While in Hargeysa, what makes the news is the audience more than the book. I think that could be a difference because of yes, if you go to the book fairs in Europe or in elsewhere, where specifically we are talking about book fair, of course, the object that we are focusing is about the book, about the publishing, about number of books sold out, or the number of books license or permission is good for translations, if you want. While a literary festival is, I think, the essence is the soil of the book more than the physical aspect and the business aspect of the book. In my opinion, here we are having huge number of young people who are coming and you know, in a place where, you know, when I'm in Pisa in Italy or in London, if a poet comes to a stage and get to 20 people who are listening, it's a successful audience. Here we are talking about 1,000 or 1,200 young people who are hearing a poet there and cheering like an absolute star of pop is on the stage where we come from the top. So I think that's what makes difference. The essence when we are talking about the literary festival, or that for me the Hargeysa International Book Fair, what it's about is the soil of the book that we are talking. In the case of the book, while the book fair is the cover, it's the business side, is the volume for me.
Thank you so much for that. At least it's clear that the literary festival is the content and the book fair is a business. Thank you so much, Kenenao. Kenenao Pele is one of the curators of the Botswana Gaborone Book Fair. Sorry, Gaborone Book Fair. Thank you so much for joining us. She's just commented, I've visited the bookshop that Stephanie runs in Berlin. Very, very commendable with amazing titles. Yes, I've actually been to your festival, Stephanie. Do you mind telling us about how festivals, what is the use of festivals in Germany? How are they done, and what is their role?
So I think book festivals can be very, very different. No? They can differ a lot, and it becomes it's a question of the infrastructure as well. So let me give you an example. We just did the last edition of the African Book Festival 2 weeks ago, and it was quite a challenge. Of course, like I don't even know how you are dealing with these numbers of guests that you have, Jama, but for us it was already quite a journey to pull this off this year. And one of the decisions that we made is we changed venue. So the book festival that the two of you visited was still in the center of town, and that was an explicit choice that we made, because Berlin, the way it functions, and I think you should always know your audience and you should always know the place where you run your festival. So for us, it was a very important choice to go to the center of Berlin, because Berlin used to be divided, and we know our audience, they will not travel from the south, for example, to the other side of town to attend maybe a reading, right? But our idea, of course, is to have as many people in the audience as possible from all the different districts in town. So we made it a point that for all of them, it's basically easy to reach. At the same time, it's a safe venue for all the guests that we have. And that was one of the decisions that we made. So that's why we went to that last venue that the both of you know. This year it was different. We had to go open air. That was also a decision that we wanted. We wanted people to be together again and to create a space. As Jama pointed out, we wanted an atmosphere. The festival is a lot about atmosphere. It's not business, it is experience. So we play music, we do crossover also in genres, for example. It is not only storytelling, say, as a classic novel, but there can be visual storytelling, for example. There can be different art forms also around literature per se. So this year, the festival was curated by Calaf Ipalanga, who is known for being one of the most successful musicians in Angola before he now published his novel, which is coming out with Faber and Faber. So he's known as a musician first and then now as a writer. So of course he brings in a different program and he creates a different atmosphere at the festival. So I wouldn't say that, for example, our festival can be compared to other festivals. It has a lot to do with the venue. It has a lot to do with who creates the program, what is the program all about. And for us, as you know, we make it a point to give this curation every year to someone else. So everyone else brings in their own networks, their own experience. Tsitsi Dangaremba was before Calaf, for example. She's a filmmaker as well. So of course she comes from a different angle. So yeah, I would say that makes a whole lot of difference.
Excellent, excellent. I have been to your festival. Thank you, Kenna. Now you're really giving us our comments. And Dr. Jama, this is somebody you want to invite, man. She really wants to come to your festival.
She is officially invited. Unfortunately, not for this session, but definitely for next year.
So, I mean, the thing that we all know is that the festival is important. You talked about, it's a way for the community to come together. It's a way for your country to gain international recognition. One of the things that people always want to know about is where does the money for these kind of things come from? Where do you get money to do a festival like this?
Well, I think that's a 1 million question, because of every time changes, and if year changes, and if year you don't know where you get the money, but you get, because of the festival is going for 40 years. So far it's working. We are an community institution, basically, because of we are not linked to the government, and we are not funded by the government of Somaliland. So it's a kind of during the year. One is to decide the theme of the year. I think it's intellectually challenging every year to come up with a theme that has also connection with the previous themes. So that's the creative side of the work. Probably my major work when it comes to the input as putting together the festival. The second job is to get money for it, and every year we don't have a long-term budget. We don't have long-term projects that are running. So every year, doing proposals, inviting people to join, and most, establishing the Hargeysa Cultural Center, which is a kind of a continuation of the success of the Hargeysa International Book Fair. When we realized that 6 days was not enough for this country, and I will come back on that. But from that day, of course, funded at some point by the EU for a project, and that was a bit relaxed for 3 years. Where 10% of the festival was also coming from that project, and then, friends, people who really believe in what we were planning to do, and continuously supported, including the Somaliland business people who, whether they give in kind, including people who donate tickets for your guests. In the money comes because of people believe in what you are doing. That worked for us for 14 years. But to be honest, I don't know where I'm getting the money. I would love to invite all of you, but still I don't have the money to invite for you. And I will work on that in a way that by February in 2022, I have that money for you guys. So that's how it comes. Every year.
Okay, I mean, I love that. Stefanie, show me the money. How do you get the money? Because that's a question everybody wants to know. Like, we're doing these amazing, important events. Where do you get the money for them?
I'm very grateful, actually, that Germany has an infrastructure. It is still underfunded, but it is at least something that we can access. So it's a puzzle, basically. Every year you have to plan ahead, basically 2 years. So my head is already at the festival 2023. So it's not like I'm not playing. So yeah, I know exactly how tough it is to get that money together. And I think the challenge is also, it depends a bit on what region we focus on. So say the first festival focused on Nigeria. The second then focused on Zimbabwe. And then the last one focused on Lusophone literature. So I thought, lucky me, financially, lots of Lusophone writers are based in Lisbon. Yeah? So the costs of traveling, I tried to keep them very small. COVID had a different plan for us. So they closed the border to Lisbon, to Portugal, 2 weeks before the festival. So you can imagine how my sweat on my forehead, because I had this all planned out in a very German way. I was set, and then this happened. So yeah, you can imagine it's kind of stressful, and I'm keeping the money together. But I also have to say that we have huge supporters. We have massive support from all kinds of institutions, and also from just from readers, for example. We have a crowdfunding every year. They donate, even though many people we offer, would you like to come on the guest list? These are the kind of supporters, and they just turn us down. They say, no, I'm buying a ticket. No, don't put me on the guest list. So I like these kind of people a lot. They understand how important that is, and that that money is a big question. Yes, because especially with the traveling costs that we have, and because especially we make it a point that it might not make anyone rich, but whoever appears on stage is paid, and whoever works is also paid. So I think that's also a big thing, that in general, when it comes to literature, people always expect the author to go on stage for free. So I have this experience all over the country. They always expect, they ask us very often, can you recommend the person who could do our event? And then I say, yes, but what's in it for the person? What can I actually tell the person? And they say, oh, no, the person is promoting his or her book, and that's really not how it works. And so we make it a point that we see into payment. Yes.
I guess I'm not the only one. Kenana also wants to know about the money. Let's see. I mean, just a quick comment here. Jama Musse is talking about the difference between book fair and festival. Looks like Mozambique doesn't have a real industry, so they only discuss business content and not business, and that's why our book fair also book fair. Okay, so that's Jama Musse. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for joining us. Actually, you mentioned this, Steffi, and Jama, I've noticed that when music festivals have musicians doing music, and film festivals have filmmakers presenting films, but literary festivals have everywhere, have everyone. Jama, is there a reason for that? Dr. Jama, I mean, you have everybody. You have
I missed you last 30 seconds. If you can repeat the question.
Oh, okay, I was saying that film festivals have filmmakers, music festivals have musicians, but literary festivals have film screenings. They have musical concerts. Is there a reason for that? Why is it that literary festivals are bigger and more encompassing?
In my opinion, at least in my case, we were talking about the people accept it in this part of the world where I'm living, where it's difficult sometimes to work. Nevertheless, they accept the book more easily than other form of arts. And no book is innocent, but people accept easily the book is before the book is they read much later and then upset later, but not immediately because they don't start reading the book. In my opinion, I'm going back to the quality, and that allows to be more open and more connectivity between and cross border of the forms of art. I think that's the reason why when we talk literary festival, you feel that the soil, the content is passing. Just the book becoming a shape of the form. But if that comes through the films, that comes through the traditional dance, or if that comes to stand-up comedy, the same remains. The content, the quality of the content is what touching, what the excuse to connect the human side of the literature, not the gray side of the message that the book is taking. The other point that I maybe add to this is, of course, geographically things change. Location is really important. Localizing is really important. If you want that, what makes a festival, whether it's a literary or otherwise festival, makes really success is if you localize the concept. That's what is not happening in many places of the world. People expect that, Stefanie was saying, people are expect that authors come and perform because they are because the way, but we have a structure in place, like in Germany or elsewhere. It's really different when you are working in a platform like the Hargeysa place. And when you are coming from a post-conflict society like the Somaliland one, then you make a priority in the life of what you are doing. Already the money that you have as a institution, as a country, as a government is already meager. And this resource maker you do as such a huge priority and rigid priority to start with safety, security, infrastructure, hospitals, and then you come to the schools. Then when you come art and everything that you have, hearing me, guys? Are you following me? Give me the sign, please, if you are following.
Hello?
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you. Yes,
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear
you. Yeah. So I was saying, when you finish everything, you forget is not the right word. You don't forget, but you put in the least priority, and then you finish what you have, the resources that you have. It's not any more important. But then you realize when you get rid of the art and culture, you remove what makes the human being humane. And what remains to you is this kind of empty soils and the beautiful buildings that you are doing, whether it's infrastructure or roads, and then you lost everything that you had at the long term. So when people understand that point, and they understand that you are losing the human being, the humanity, they come back and they are ready to offer the small amount of money that helps you to hold on a festival that might cost 200k euros or more than that. They can of the is less than a year. So I mean, it's really that point that if you understand and if you are able to explain to your people that you are using the humanity and the humane side of the work, then what you are doing is mechanical side of the festival, and that's what I call book fairs, not literary festival.
Thank you, Stephanie. How you already told me that why you've chosen the route of why you've had a filmmaker, then you had a musician. You're only 3 years old. Has there been any noticeable effect of the festival that you've been running? Has there been anything that it's achieved in that period that it's been running?
A lot, actually. So we have noticed that several of our guests have found German publishers, for example. That is one of the biggest achievements that we love to see happening. So many of them are now available in the German language. But I think also the way the festival is creating and crossing through the genres, it is also something that creates an interest in the continent itself and in the art that comes from the continent and also in the debates. And the way, for example, our curators create a program and put people together in conversation is so different from everything else that we can access in Germany, that it also creates this kind of wow effect to the German audience. And I didn't know about it. Or, for example, when they now hear about the Hargeysa Festival, I'm quite sure that this has made a huge impression on the audience, that something like this happens in a country that is only portrayed in our media. And I think media is a huge issue still in Germany, only portrayed as a war country. And we know it only connected to war and pirates, and then that's probably it. And I think it makes a massive difference how we access stories. So the way, for example, Jama just pointed out, storytelling can come through various different angles, and it always has, to me, of course, but it often has a political angle. And I think it is very important that we talk about how we tell stories from the continent and also who tells these stories. So I want to give you one personal example where I was really also inspired to do something very different. That was in 2011 when in Tahrir Square we saw people on the streets and making a difference in their country. So I'm watching German television and I want to know what's going on and I want to be informed. And I noticed that throughout the whole time while this revolution was taking place, we only saw German so-called experts speaking to us, the German audience, and reporting to what is happening. And I think that is just simply something that
Okay,
I'm not hearing.
Looks like we can't hear Stephanie. She'll come back just now. What I'll do is, Jama, I'll ask you a different type of a question. You've been in the industry for 15 years. The Hargeysa Festival has been around for 15 years. And I just wanted to know, how has the festival scene been on the continent compared to when you started in 2007 and now? How has there been growth? What are the changes been? How has it been, the difference?
Definitely, as I said, not only because of the people who attended, from 200 people, a couple of hundred people attended to over 11,000 people who attended.
Sorry.
2 days,
Welcome back.
weekend,
Thank you.
of a weekend to full 6 days. Welcome back, Stefanie.
Thank you, Jama.
6 days, 6 full days, different form of art has been presented in the mean. It grow both locally and internationally. Locally, because of we organize creative writing courses before the festival. We organize this year filmmaking workshops. We created and did for young people, 160 young people, how to make traditional material stuff. So there is an entire thing that happened before the book fair. Since the idea of the book fair was also to promote the reading and writing culture, we made also in the years of library, where we, before the month before the book fair, we traveled between the cities, villages actually, going with a caravan of 500 books put in cars, and traveling with the young people, going to one village to another and staying with them at night, for example. And sometimes from one village to other, a camel is full of books that are going to one city to another, just to make the campaign for reading and writing culture. So the festival grew up within the Somaliland, young and not anymore young people, to promote public libraries and reading cultures, establishing reading clubs and so on. But also from the international side, because of if, as I said, we calling themselves as internationals. Last time we had over 50 people who were attending, coming from outside, coming from different 23 countries, different countries for all over the continents of the globe. So the number of people, I'm talking only the foreigners, non-Somalis, neither from Ethiopia, Somaliland, Somalia, but just coming from outside of the Horn of Africa, the people I'm counting. Quite, they became local people who are coming from Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia. Really quite comes to the Asia, but the people I'm counting are people who are coming from in Western Africa, or in Europe, or in Australia, or in the North. So it, but just to conclude, it grew up also because of Somaliland is not a recognized country, and this is really fundamental thing, because of you invite people. This is how it works. Sometime immediately next week we will talk about the theme of the year next year. So we decide the theme of the year. When it's decided the theme of the year, we spread the words, and then we invite people. One of the most challenges is when you invite new people, they will say, well, you're coming to Somaliland, and the first question is, where is Somaliland? So you have to explain, where is Somaliland? And then they will feel, oh, I'm going there. Should I be careful with Al-Shabaab? Should I be killed? Or so you have to explain, no, it's a peaceful country. It's a beautiful country. There's a beautiful people that you will find. So you have to persuade these people to accept it, to come. And then they will have huge difficulties in their country, because of the foreign affairs of Germany would say there is no Somaliland, so you are going to Somalia, so you should be afraid. You are, things that have to, but you have to deal all those bureaucracy that is because of Somaliland is not recognized. So, but that is paid off when the people come here, and James had this experience. Then they say, "Wow, this is not the place where I was expecting to come." And then that message goes back to Kenya or Germany, in this case, my friend is connected here, and they that message. There is a there are people, problem is that the Western media, of course, accepted Somali people for the whole problem is that unfortunately what's happening from the piracy to Al-Shabaab to destruction of all what was happening. But when they come here, our guests, they become ambassadors going back to their country saying, no, that's not all about. There is another phase, the Somali people, where there is a good thing happening. Young people who are having, happiness and reading books. So that's the difficult side of the Hargeysa Book Fair, which becomes quite. I don't say the foreign affairs of Somaliland as a ministry, but quite as a unrecognized leadership role that the people is for Somalia.
Dr. Jama, I have to say that you guys have been doing an amazing job. I mean, I'm now the biggest advocate of Somaliland since I came from that part of the world. And anybody who goes to Hargeysa Festival will be a supporter of the concept. Stephanie, I want you to finish your thought. You've been talking about, since the festival started, you've been helping people get published. You've been helping people change perception. You want to finish that thought? We didn't hear the end of that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So I think I was referring to the fact that I think it is very important who's telling the story, and also in what sense, and that I had this experience when it came to Egypt reporting in 2011. I think this continues. 2011 is 10 years ago, so I was hoping for a bit of a change in reporting, and I cannot personally say that I see that. I give you another example that is recent. 2 weeks ago, when we ran the festival in Berlin, we had a lot, and I'm grateful for that, we had a lot of media attention. Mainly, I think, also because it amazed people a lot that we were able to put this together at all in the middle of the pandemic, and they were kind of interested also how we would do that. And then it created an interest, of course, that 30 years of German unification and Angolan ties. So we have a bit of a history that we also try to put forward between the two countries. But what I found interesting is, and that is something that we always see every year, is that mainly Carla and I are the ones that are going on interviews, for example, on the radio, or we're giving interviews for the printed press or something like that, which is not really in my personal interest, because it should be, for example, the curator expressing what are your ideas, what is behind the festival, what do you think is it about Angolan literature, Lusophone literature in the world. It shouldn't be me who's answering these kind of questions, because I actually also learned from our curator in that sense. But it is a point that the German media has an issue with translation, and I don't understand why that is. I mean, we have the means to translate. It is not such a big deal, for example, to have someone speaking English or any other language and then put a subtitle, for example. I mean, it takes a bit more effort, maybe a few more minutes, but it cannot be that difficult. Or when it is something that is even pre-recorded, I do not understand personally why it is not possible, and why, for example, we have a media team coming to the festival venue and they interview my colleague Carla, and they interview the curator, and then later I see the report on TV and I know Khalaf is not in the picture. So they didn't air his interview, they only aired hers. And I think that's just simply something that we still have to work on as a challenge in our country, that we actually make it a point to listen to the people on the ground and to listen to people who actually we are talking, and not always talking about, but maybe talking with. That is something that I find very important.
Thank you. Dr. Jama, what are some of the festivals across the continent that you recommend our viewers to check out? And, apart from, we've talked about Hargeysa. What are some of the other festivals we need to be checking out? Because I know you've been to several.
Yes, actually, the festivals were coming recently quite bubble in Kenya. Of course, the Nairobi, that there are a couple of festivals that was taking place, but with sort of a disconnection that happened recently. But the book, I think there is an issue of coordination as well within the countries. What I like to suggest, to recommend, is small specific place you don't expect in sometimes. And those are the ones that probably makes the
I seem to have lost Dr. Jama. We can't hear him. As we wait for him to get his connection, when he comes in, I'll just let him on. Thank you, Lee, for joining us. Very informative, formative session. Now you've known the difference between a book fair and a festival. I wanted to know something that I noticed about the festival in African Book Festival, and it's something I noticed about many festivals. What is this headliner thing? Why is it so important? Is this something why is this person an important person to a festival?
Could you repeat the question? Why is important?
Who is a headliner and why are they important? This is something I noticed.
Oh, the headliner, yes.
Yeah.
It's a bit like from the music festivals, where you also always have one band or one musician that is the center of the festival or the opener of the festival. So we have had two headliners, for example, that were given keynotes also at the beginning of this festival. Chris Abani was the first, and then Ben Okri was following him. And then this year we had Agualusa, but unfortunately because of the travel restrictions, he couldn't make it in the end. But I'm thinking the point of the headliner is the curator chooses someone he or she looks up to and made a difference in the literature that the curator wants to present. And then at the same time, it is a well-established person. And again, still for the German audience, not often familiar with the person or the work of the person, but the person has definitely had an impact. And I think that is quite important to have someone who's that well established and can kind of lead the festival into a discussion.
Okay, so you've had Ben Okri, you've had, you're supposed to have had Agualusa. I mean, now that Jama is not coming, maybe are you considering 2023 for Somaliland, or would you be convinced?
So my colleague Carla has already visited Jama's festival, and just like I think you said that, James, no, that we are all ambassadors now for Somaliland. So she returned just like that. She was an ambassador, and she is still. So actually, it would have been also nice to have her today, but she really definitely got that impression that it's very life-changing also. So yeah, I think she was very much impressed, and definitely we are ambassadors.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap up now, because we're almost at the hour, and we want to say thank you for your time. Oh, we have a comment here from Leah Denley. Official difference between a book fair and a book festival. Authors get drunk at a book festival. It's good to know, man. This I did not. So it depends on alcohol.
Players speaking.
Yeah, so Jesse Musse has a question. Where is Angola literature coming out when you speak about Lusophone literature? Are they translating their work, or are they doing a strong communication with their literature?
So I think most of the Angolan writers, that's what I learned from the last festival, are publishing in Portuguese. And so the Portuguese language is one of the biggest languages in the world. It does not stop in Portugal or in Angola. It goes to Brazil, Cape Verde, etc., etc. So the literature that is produced in the language has a large impact. Is quite massive. So that answers the question a bit.
No, but I think the question is about why, because there are 5 countries in Lusophone Africa.
Right.
It's like they're interconnected. Angola and Lusophone is almost the same. I think that's the question you're asking, Jama Musse.
So it's a question about why, for example, we chose, when we looked at Lusophone literature, why we chose Angola to work with.
Yeah, why is it that Angola seems to be? Yeah, that's the way I've understood it.
Yeah, so now we chose Angola first before we chose the kind of the Lusophone literature. It was because people are always asking, so how do you come up with the curator? And I think it's a very inclusive process. So in our case, Kalaf is based in Berlin, and he came to the first few editions, and then he correctly pointed out, well, you didn't have any Lusophone author in these 2 editions, so why not? And then we got talking, and then that actually happened. That then I thought, maybe with your ideas, which you're presenting already, then why wouldn't you do the curation maybe next time? That might be a good idea. And so this was one point, that Kalaf was actually the one coming from Angola. Angola is his birth country, so that's why then the focus of Angola came about. But at the same time, I'm thinking that oh no, I lost my point. I hope I answered the question a little.
You've actually answered the question. We have another comment from Anna Dosson. Thank you all for this fascinating discussion and the amazing work you're doing. You're welcome. We are happy that you've enjoyed that. Thank you, Anne. Portuguese, I did not know this. Portuguese is the most spoken language in the global south. Okay. We learn a lot in this. Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do, thank you so much, Steph, for joining us at this live stream. I know you're not in Germany; you're in Johannesburg right now.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. We have more of your people. Chimeka Garrix, well done, Jama and Stefanie, for the enlightening conversation. Thank you. For the smooth. Thank you, Chimeka.
Thanks,
I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
So it looks like everybody who went to the book fair is streaming in right now.
It seems like it.
Yes. So I'm like to say, would you like to make a closing statement? Why is a festival important?
Why a book festival is important?
Yes. Why is a literary festival important?
So I had to ask that question to Fiston Mujila, who's also a guest at our festival, because that what I just told you. Actually, I tried to put a few people on the radio as well, and then something happened. And even though Fiston speaks fluent German, very proper, he couldn't make it to the interview. So I asked him this kind of question because I knew they would ask me what is the importance. And so I want to quote Fiston on this. He said it makes a huge difference in for the authors to come to a country and present their work and to speak about their work, and also, for example, find other, say, publishers, but also find a different audience. And then something that he pointed out, and I found quite interesting and important as well, it makes a huge difference for the diaspora, for example, to have certain role models to look up to see people that are on stage and they are actually performing their art, where maybe sometimes at home they will hear, do you not want to study something real, learn a real profession first before you write a poem all the time or something like that. So he said that makes a huge difference, and he found that very important.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. I want to thank everybody who's logged in. Thank you, Hans, for your. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
And I'd like to thank everybody who's logged on for the last. It's already an hour, for the last 1 hour. I'd also like to say thank you to the Frankfurter Buchmesse, who's our partner on this live stream, and the German Foreign Federal Office. You can see their logo there. Here's another comment. Sandro, thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll say thank you for logging in. Thank you, Frankfurter Buchmesse. Thank you for German Foreign Federal Office. And thank you, Jama Musse. I want you all to have a good evening. And I'll say goodbye and God bless. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, James, so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining. Thank you, by the way.
Thanks.
Okay.